Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2023 Data Platform Women in Tech and Data Platform DEI Mental Health and Wellness Day. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Redgate, SQL Gene Training. We are also a supporter of Tracy Baggiano and her work with the Foster Family Alliance. She is a foster superhero and works with a lot of families in the North Carolina area to help the children and youth. We will be getting a donation from Redgate to help her with her work. If you're interested in learning more, here's their website and their email address. We would like to start with a disclaimer that this is a community event. We are not sharing medical advice. This is not a substitute for treating any physical or mental issues that you may have. Excuse me. If you are having any types of issues that you feel that you need to have additional support, please seek the help of a licensed healthcare professional. I would like to introduce now Cathrine Wilhelmsen. She is going to be presenting her session on stress, depressed, burned out, and warning signs that you should not ignore. Cathrine.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I'll jump right into my session here. So first of all, and like Leslie mentioned, if you do need help, please reach out to a professional. This session is a personal story of mine, and I will mention things like self-harm, suicidal ideation, and suicide. If those topics are triggering to you, just please be aware that they will be mentioned. And again, reach out to someone if you do need help today. So my name is Cathrine Wilhelmsen, or Cathrine Wilhelmsen. I'm from Norway. My pronouns are she and her, and I work for a Norwegian company called WIT. On my free time, I love to speak and blog, usually about technical topics like Azure Synapse Analytics and Azure Data Factory. And because of that, I've been a Microsoft Data Platform MVP since 2015. You can find me on Twitter at Cathrine W or on my website, cathrinew.net. Now, this is how I usually introduce myself. This is my highlight introduction slide with my achievements, with things that I want to point out. What I usually don't show people is what's on the backside of that. As we all do, I think we all choose to show the best sides of ourselves, and then we like to keep the parts of ourselves that are not as good hidden. Today, I am going to share a little bit more on the hidden part of me. So what you don't see when I'm usually presenting on stage, when I'm talking about technical topics, you don't know that I struggle with migraines, which can knock me out for a day or two. You don't know that I've had sleep problems for most of my adult life, where I can struggle to fall asleep or to stay asleep, and how much that can affect me in my daily life. You might not know that I have been on extended sick leave due to burnout more than once. And I was also diagnosed with clinical depression in my early 20s. And I have been struggling with that ever since. And this session here today is very much my own story. I don't have the answers or solutions to how to fix depression, how to fix burnout, how to avoid it completely. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a therapist. You are not my therapist, so I'm not going to be oversharing here today. But what I can do is share my story and share my personal experiences and a little bit about what I've gone through, how I've dealt with it, and how I'm doing at the moment. And my hope is that for those of you listening to this, it can help you a little bit as well. Maybe not fixing your problems, because you're only one who can do that. You have to choose to actually go ahead and deal with these things and manage the things that I will be talking about. But I'm hoping that you won't feel as alone, because I know that I've felt incredibly alone on many occasions dealing with these things. So today it's a little bit about my story. I have a few goals for this session. First of all, I want to raise awareness about these topics, and thank you again for organizing this Mental Health and Wellness Day, which is helping everyone in our community and hopefully a little bit outside of our community as well, to be aware of these issues and these topics. I want to kind of help you recognize the different types of issues that we may be struggling with, how to identify them. Sometimes the lines are a little blurry, but I will be trying to give you a few pointers on how to identify the different things that we will be talking about today. I'm also hoping to kind of help everyone get a better understanding of what these issues are and how it feels to live with them, to deal with them, whether it's you or someone you know. Just understanding a little bit more about what is actually going on inside us can be helpful for all of us. And finally, a little bit about treatment. This is the topic that I will mostly share what I've gone through and a few pieces of common advice, but I cannot give you a treatment plan. You do need to see someone who is actually a professional for that. So let's start with the fun topic of today, stress. I know it's a fun topic, right? So my first question, and I wish that I could see you right now because I would love to see you raise your hands, is have you ever been stressed? If I ask this question, I assume that every single one of you is going to raise your hand because we all feel stress in some way in our lives. We can be stressed about our work situation. Maybe it's the workplace, maybe it's the tasks, maybe it's having a packed schedule at work. We can be stressed about our finances, and I think this is even more relevant these days over the past few years with everything that has been happening. We can stress about our family and our relationships, maybe our partners or children or other family members, parents, siblings. Family can cause a lot of stress and worry. Maybe we have health issues, underlying health issues, or maybe we got hurt. We have illnesses or injuries that we have to deal with. We can also deal with internal stressors, things like having very high expectations of ourselves or feeling insecure about something. Maybe we are just a very pessimistic person in general. Or maybe we are struggling with perfectionism. We always want to do everything and we want to do it perfectly. That can cause a lot of stress as well. So there are many reasons that we might be stressed, and I'm expecting every one of you to kind of nod along to at least a few of these that you see on your screen right now. But what does stress feel like? And this is where I want you to just take a few moments and think about how you feel and experience stress. Because it's very easy for us to say, oh, I'm stressed. What does that really mean? How would you describe stress to someone else if you couldn't use the word stress itself? So what about mentally? How does stress affect you mentally? In my case, it can be that I can feel very unfocused, or I can be hyper-focused. Sometimes I switch back and forth between the two. I can go from not being able to do anything to being super stressed and then doing a lot of things at once. I can feel that my thoughts are very often, they are just racing and churning, and it feels like I can't really turn my brain off. So all of my thoughts, they are just running around. It can be complete chaos at times. It can also be that I forget things because I am very focused or worried about something that I'm completely forgetting something else. So those are the few ways that I can kind of feel stress mentally. And how about physically? In my case, I can feel especially that my heart is racing, my pulse is going up, my heart is racing, and I can also feel that my stomach starts to hurt, or maybe not hurt, but I have a knot in my stomach. Something inside of my stomach is not quite right. And sometimes I can almost feel like it's pulsating, like there's something going on physically inside of my body when I get stressed. I can also get very restless. So I can be, fidgeting or, moving my leg or tapping my finger and just being unable to sit still. Or I can feel the complete opposite, that I feel like I can't really do anything. So I feel like I'm kind of tensing up and locking up as well. Many different ways to feel that. And also emotionally, I think stress is probably, like, we think of it as a feeling, but what other feelings do you feel if you get stressed? Do you get, maybe you get a little bit snappy or annoyed or easily annoyed? If you are worrying about something and someone comes up and interrupts you, you can get a little bit more snappy than if you were completely calm and relaxed. Maybe it can be even worse. Maybe you can get angry because you're frustrated and angry, and you can kind of feel that the stress is affecting you in that way. Or maybe you feel disconnected from whatever it is that you are doing. The important thing here is that I want you to make notes, whether it's mentally or you write it down, or just keep a list in your head, but try to identify how you actually feel when you are stressed, because those are the things that you can work with. And those are the first few kind of warning signs of stress, is recognizing those feelings in yourself. And I'm guessing that for some of you, this is very easy. For others, it might be a slightly difficult task trying to identify and kind of find the right words to describe it. I know for me, it's very easy for me to understand what's going on inside of my brain. Very analytical and logical brain. I can describe things, but when it comes to my feelings, it's like I feel something. I don't always know how to describe that. But try and think about this, how stress feels for you. And when we think about stress, we have all of these feelings. We call it a feeling or a state, but what is it really? How do you define stress? And for me, it's two parts to that. First of all, stress is the way that your mind responds to being under pressure, getting overwhelmed, or having difficulties coping with something. So it's that logical part of you that is responding to certain events. But it is also your body reacting physically to changes and challenges and threats. And this kind of makes sense, because what happens when you get stressed is that your brain and body are working together. So your brain is noticing that, okay, something is not quite right here. Something is difficult or different, or it's a new situation. And it kind of yells out, red alert, ready shields and weapons. That's a Star Trek reference. And it sends out all of these messages to your body to actually react to whatever it is that you are noticing. So things like adrenaline and cortisol, different types of hormones, they get released into your body, and that tells your body to act. It makes your heart rate go up. So if some of you said that, yeah, my heart rate goes up when I'm stressed, that's one of the reasons why. It also makes your breathing become faster, and make sure that you are breathing more frequently, getting more oxygen into your body and getting that into all of your muscles. That can also cause your muscles to kind of tense and tighten. And it can also affect your digestive system, because it is telling your body that, yeah, I know we had food earlier, but it's not really important for us to digest that right now. We need to make sure that your body is prepared for whatever is coming. Your heart is healthy and pumping all of that blood and oxygen around, so we can actually take action. And the reason for this is that when we get stressed, this is the age-old fight or flight response. And when we get stressed, we we can kind of go into a couple of different modes. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes we can feel both of them, but it's that old fight or flight response where you can choose to either fight. You want to stand up for yourself, you want to confront the situation, you want to face that challenge head on. And if you look at that from that old perspective, is that okay, yeah, I need my muscles to be in shape, I need my body to be prepared to just go on and attack, to jump and lunge and really, really fight this thing. Or it can make sure that you are ready to run away. Maybe you realize that this is not a situation that I want to deal with right now. I just need to get away from this or not deal with this at all. In which case, again, your body is ready, but in this case, just run away. You need to run fast. You need all of that oxygen. Or it can even be that you don't really know what to do, or the safest option in the situation is to just freeze. Just make sure that whatever perceived threat that your brain and body is experiencing does not notice you. Let's just hope it goes away on its own. And that could be one of the reasons that your muscles tense up. And all of these things can be really good when you're fighting dragons, because your body is literally trying to keep you alive. If you're out there slaying dragons like women in tech do all the time, you need to stay alive. And that's where this response is coming from. So that's what stress is. It's this deep, old, instinctive reaction to whatever threat or challenge that we perceive. The problem, though, is that we don't really actually slay dragons, right? We don't have actual dragons flying around breathing fire on our cities. We are dealing with our family members, or our work tasks, or chores at home, or any other kind of like daily mundane tasks that are still triggering all of these feelings in us. And this is going to cause quite a lot of issues if we react, so intensely to small things. And that is where the first part of the session is, if you can identify your stress, you can also make sure that you manage it in some way. So some of the common ways of managing and dealing with stress, and I am especially thinking about work stress here today. This is a Women in Technology and session here today, so I am focusing on work stress and not so much personal and family stress. But make sure that once in a while you go outside. Make sure that you move your body. If you get stressed, getting fresh air, releasing all of that energy in your body, moving around, just making sure that you're not sitting still in front of your screen. You want to make sure that you eat healthy. Just make sure that you have enough energy and you don't have, sugar highs making that stress even worse, right? And you want to make sure that you get enough rest, so you feel prepared to kind of manage that stress. And if you get enough rest, it's also easier to do all of that. But also, if you find yourself in those stressful situations quite frequently, there are a few things that you might need to practice a little bit more. I mean, these are fairly common sense, very generic advice. But in a work situation, you also need to learn how to say no, because you want to reduce that stress. You want to remove the stressors that you have. So learning how to say no, especially in a work environment or even at home, and just saying that this is going to cause too much stress right now, I'm not going to do it, is a very important skill. I've been terrible at that. Try to disconnect regularly. I know, at least for me, sitting with my phone in my hand, scrolling, and basically, you can disconnect from your brain by scrolling, but you can also disconnect by going outside and just being in nature, being outside. Having that phone, having all of those notifications, having all the things that you're checking out, it's not really reducing any stress, even though it can be fun sometimes to just scroll through Instagram or TikTok or something like that. And spend time with friends. this is maybe one of the best ways to reduce stress is to hang out with someone that you care about, that you enjoy spending time with, have fun, and laugh. That releases a whole different set of hormones that is helping reduce all of that adrenaline, cortisol, and all of those stress hormones. So definitely important to do that. And if you need any kind of help, reach out for support. Don't sit with your stress alone. It could be something like, asking a partner to maybe help you with a task, or asking a coworker if they can help you instead of sitting with something on your own. And basically, the whole point here is if you can identify your stress and you can find ways to reduce that, hopefully this is the only part of this session today that you're actually going to need. My goal here is I want to stop all of you at the stress level, make sure that you can manage that and find ways to reduce it, to treat it, to get over it, and not have it tip over into something that's a lot more difficult to handle. So recognize how you feel stress, when you feel stress, in which situations, and then identify how you can treat that stress, reduce it or remove it completely. And one of the topics, which is actually a session later today as well, is I think I call this, it's hacking your body, but it's basically just breathing. And this is so simple and so effective. And so many of us forget to do this, including me, because when we get stressed, we often, like I mentioned, we tense up, our heart rate goes up, we start breathing, and we often breathe more shallowly. So we breathe like into our chest, and then we start almost hyperventilating. We don't actually breathe in deeply. So one of the exercises that we can do is, I'm going to guide you through this just once, but try to do this on your own as well. And this is basically breathe in as deep as you can, hold your breath, and then release it very slowly. So I'm going to let you read through this while I just grab a sip of water. So let's try and do this together. So what I want you to do is just sit up straight, make sure that your shoulders are down, and unclench your jaw. That is one of the things that I have noticed, is that we often tense our jaw without even noticing it. So if you can feel it now, this is your cue to just unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders, sit up straight. And then I want you to breathe in through the nose all the way into your belly. And at this point, forget about your posture. Don't suck in your belly trying to, get that flat stomach. Make sure that you breathe all the way down into your belly for about 4 to 6 seconds. And then you're going to hold it, not your belly, but your breath, for the same amount of time before releasing it slowly, exhaling slowly through the mouth for about double the length of the deep breath that you're taking. So if we breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold and release your stomach and exhale very slowly. And continue to exhale, get all of it out of your lungs. If you do that a few times, I'm pretty sure that you're going to notice that your body starts to relax, your shoulders drop maybe a little bit more. You can feel, maybe some tingly sensations in your body or your head. And if it doesn't work the first time, do it a couple more times. If you do this a few times during the day, it can help you reduce that stress. So if you start overthinking, if you start getting restless, if you start getting that knot in your stomach, just try and breathe. Breathe deeply and then let it out. It's going to help reduce all of those effects that are happening inside your body. And make sure that you stick around for a session later today on these different kind of breathing techniques. They are super, super helpful. And again, the reason that I'm explaining, how do you feel stress? How do you manage stress? How do you deal with it? is because I don't want you to let your stress, go from being something that it's only supposed to happen if you're in actual danger, right? That's the instinct that we have. If we see a dragon or, a dinosaur or whatever, a mammoth, we wanted to fight or we wanted to run away. It's not when an email pops into our inbox, right? So we don't want that stress to start feeling normal. Because if we have that stress over a long period of time and it starts to feel normal, you are at risk for burnout. And this is something that you do not want to experience ever. So some of the warning signs of dealing with stress and having that, starting to look more like burnout than just regular stress, you can feel that in multiple different ways as well. So in terms of emotional warning signs, if you start on a regular basis and very frequently, you start to feel anxious about work tasks or things that you're doing at home, if you start getting, if you get annoyed or irritated, maybe you get a little bit snappy, if that starts to become more of a normal, anger as well, if you react with anger, if you see an email pop in or you get a Teams notification from a coworker and you just go like, oh, just leave me alone, right? I think some of us have probably felt that a few times. Or if you're constantly like restless, like you can't really relax even when you're done with work. If you go and sit down after work, you're restless and you just feel like something is off. Those are some of the warning signs that you should take seriously. Same thing with physical warning signs. Insomnia, if your mind is racing and it's causing you to not fall asleep, or if you can't fall asleep, or maybe you sleep way too much when you have the chance to sleep, you might be sleeping for 12, 14, 16 hours. Those are also some of the things that you need to be aware of. If your body starts to hurt in different areas, if you have frequent headaches or maybe stomach aches, and that stomach ache is not going away, there's constantly something hurting or in other places in your body. Maybe you experience weight loss or weight gain. For me, I know that I very easily gain weight, and that happens, because of stress, releasing hormones that are affecting my digestive system that can cause me to gain weight, in addition to having less energy because I feel tired all the time. Or also in my case, if you stress too much, and I know this from my own, worst periods of stress, is acne breakouts, which is honestly, it's just causing more stress. If you feel like you're a teenager and you have a face full of acne, you don't feel confident. It adds on to all of that stress. It can also affect you cognitively. So if you start, oh, I have no idea what I did yesterday, or I can't tell you what I did last week. If you start struggling a bit with memory, it could be because of that stress overload. You might not be able to focus properly. And all of those things can cause you to make poor decisions. All of those are also warning signs that you should be aware of. And finally, on the behavioral side, if you notice that you are changing the way that you live, if you reduce your activity, if you stop working out, if you start self-isolating, you start, not going out, you stop seeing friends, you don't go to family events, or maybe even the worst case, if you start abusing substances like alcohol, for example. If you do that just to get through the day, again, it's a massive warning sign. And all of these are signs that you're no longer just stressed, you are headed straight into burnout. And I know that because I've been there. So burnout it's basically you are completely exhausted. You are exhausted physically, you are exhausted mentally, and you are exhausted emotionally. You are no longer able to function normally. And this could be because of what we just said, because of chronic stress. You've been stressing for too long, for a long period of time, and it just gets so overwhelming. Your body is constantly in this fight or flight mode all the time. You have all of these processes, and it gets too much, and your body just kind of shuts down. It could be because you have a poor work-life balance, or it could be purely emotionally if you're constantly worrying and stressing about family and finances, for example, things that are very difficult to just manage on your own. If you have that for a long period of time, your body can basically just shut down. And burnout this is a bit of a pet peeve for me if people say that I'm feeling a little burned out today, or yeah, I'm kind of burned out, so I need a day off. For me, that is not burnout. That just means that you're tired, or you've been stressed for a few days, or you haven't slept well, or you just need a break from your tasks. Real burnout is not just something that you feel for a day or two. If you can get rid of what you call your burnout in a weekend or a vacation, you go away for a week, then you're in a good place, because that means that you are in a place where you can actually manage it and stop the proper exhaustion burnout from happening. Because a real burnout, you just shut down completely. And I know this because I have experienced it. I have had 2 major incidents where I completely burned out. One happened in about 2016 and the other in 2020. And they were very different from each other. So in 2016, it was a time where I got very involved in the community. I did a lot of blogging, I did a lot of speaking, I organized user groups. I was basically trying to do all the things on top of my daily job. And I loved it. I loved every part of it. It was what I thought was good stress, because it gave me positive things in return. It made me feel good because I challenged myself, I grew, I spoke at different events, I blogged and I got good positive feedback on that. And all of these things felt really, really positive. At work, it was maybe not so fun, but it wasn't really like any major dramatic situation that happened. It was just a lot of work that needed to be done. So I was, working full days, being fairly busy. We had deadlines, we had projects that we needed to complete, we had meetings. So it was, 8 hours of working fairly intensely. And then after work, I would come home, I would sit down in front of my computer, I would start working on a blog post or a session. And especially organizing events as well, it takes so much time, more than most people realize. And I ended up probably having like a full work day after work as well. So while work was pretty fine, and the things that I did after work were fun, it just ended up being too much. And what happened was that I noticed that the lines kind of became blurry a little bit, where I would, go to work and do something, and then maybe I had to deal with something in terms of contacting a sponsor or a speaker or dealing with something, which was something that I chose to prioritize. But that meant that I had to work a little bit later to actually, catch up on my work stuff. And then the lines got blurry between what was work and what was not work. And especially for me, where my main hobby was speaking about technology that I did at work as well, very blurry lines. And what happened was I was stressed. I thought it was fine. I thought it was the good kind of stress that, it produces results, and everything is fun. It's rewarding, but it just got too much. And at some point, my body just basically shut down. It was very abrupt for me. It was very surprising. And it was very difficult for me to just understand and accept because, I didn't feel like I had, worked 100 hours per week, full speed ahead, what you might be thinking about when you think of someone who's burned out. But that's what I did. My body couldn't separate between the fun stuff and what was, very destructive kind of stress. It was still stress. It was still affecting my body, and my body shut down basically. And I ended up being away from work for at least half a year. And those 6 months are not fun. It is not a vacation. It is not, hey, I'm just gonna enjoy my time off work. There is so much guilt and shame, and all of these awful feelings. And you feel like you've failed yourself, you've failed your coworkers, because if you can't do your job anymore, someone else have to pick up, those tasks. And it's very destructive, getting to the point where you literally you can't get out of bed to do what you need to do. So that was a very typical case of being overworked. And I got through that. I worked through that. I discovered all of these ways that I've already showed you on, how to find that work-life balance, how to take care of myself, how to, do all the good things of, working out and eating properly, and basically just, spending time with friends and family. And I thought I'd figured things out. And things were really good for a couple of years. In late 2019, I challenged myself to, I wrote 25 blog posts in 25 days as like a Christmas calendar thing. And it was stressful. Yeah. But I also knew that once I was done with that, I could go on, a Christmas break. I could enjoy time off and spend time with my family. And I felt that I had that balance and I had everything under control. And that was fine. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to burn out again. I learned my lesson. And then we all know what happened a little later in 2020. Everything changed, right? So I went from having figured things out to having a good work-life balance to feeling like I knew myself well enough to deal with anything. And then the pandemic hit and everything changed. So I got stuck at home alone, not being able to work. I could no longer do the things that I enjoyed, traveling and speaking and attending events. So I basically lost my entire network as well of friends. I ended up working way more than I did before, because especially early pandemic days, everything was meetings. It was team meeting after team meeting after team meeting. And then you ended up just working more to actually be able to get things done. And it was a very, very strange situation for everyone. And for me, the most difficult part for me there was that I also started a new project where I was supposed to go to a new client. I was supposed to learn new technology, work with new people, but I couldn't actually be there. I couldn't see them. We had to work from home. And for me, that was probably not the best choice. In hindsight, I should probably have said that, this might not be the right project for me, because I went in and it was brand new technology I had never worked on before, but I was still there as a senior technical person. And the combination of feeling like I had to learn, something completely new, I had never touched it before at all, while being a senior, made me, spend so much time trying to learn this on my own. And in addition to that, one of the persons I worked with, he was a man older than me, and he challenged everything that I said and did the entire time. So whatever I did, it was like, I need to double check this with someone else. And that combination of feeling like a junior and constantly being questioned on top of dealing with the pandemic, it just made me, I kept working and working and working, trying to make things, trying to deliver what I felt like I was supposed to. And I think the key moment for me looking back on that was the day before I was going on summer vacation. I went to my parents and I told my parents that I just need to send an email before I can log off for my vacation. And I went upstairs to my room. I sat down in bed with my laptop and I just had to finish something that was like, I just need to finish this thing. And I sat in bed for 6 hours until it was 1 or 2 a.m., finishing up the things that I needed to do, constantly telling myself that I just need to get through this and then I can log off and go on vacation. And after that, I was completely done. I crashed again. I hit the wall and I completely burned out. So 2 very different situations for me. One where I actually worked too much and the other one where I felt very undervalued. Both kind of still in that, you're still working too much, but different points of view. And here is something that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of when it comes to burnout, because we often think of burnout as, it's something that comes from working too many hours. Like you're literally overworked. You are overwhelmed. You're working long hours. You don't have enough downtime and you have too many responsibilities. Basically, you're just running around the entire time. That is probably the biggest cause of burnout, I would guess. But there's also this different part where you feel undervalued. So in my case, it was a little combination of both, but the second time I felt more undervalued. And it's a very different way of experiencing burnout because you feel understimulated or you're treated unfairly. You don't feel like your work is meaningful or you don't have control of your own tasks. So maybe you're still working just regular hours, but you feel like whatever you're doing, no one cares, no one uses it, you don't get any feedback. Or in my case, like you're constantly questioned on things. Maybe you feel like it's not aligning with your own values, for example, or maybe it's just very repetitive and boring. And that can also lead to burnout, but it can lead to burnout in a slightly different way. So in addition to that chronic stress, that is what we usually think of as burnout, it can also be that, you become cynical and passive aggressive. You become angry and resentful because you're not thriving in your environment. Maybe you're only working, 40 hours a week, but you're still getting burned out because of the situation that you're in. So it could be, a couple of different reasons why you burn out, and you should be aware of both. I thought I had it figured out, and then I experienced the other one. Now it's, oh, okay, this is interesting, So how do you actually prevent burnout? It's very similar to, reducing stress. You have to manage your own stress. And in many, many cases, that can, just ensure that you don't experience that burnout at all. It could be that you schedule and take regular time off. I know that is probably easier for those of us living in Europe as compared to the US, where I know this is, it works in slightly different ways, but it could also be just taking responsibility for what you do on your free time. So if you are, you are having 4 or 5 different hobbies, you're constantly running around from one activity to the next, is there something that you can cut back on and learn to say no to things? It's difficult. It might feel like, oh, I really want to do these fun things, right? But sometimes you might actually have to kind of change your lifestyle to make sure that you don't burn out. Because there are some things that you don't have control over in a situation. So you need to find the things that you can control. And if you actually end up being burned out, recovery will be difficult and it will take time. And this is, like I said, if you're burned out and you end up on sick leave for half a year, or maybe longer. I know people who have been, who haven't really recovered at all after burnout. I know people who have physically collapsed, basically just like their body literally shut down and they passed out. And when you get to that point, it's going to take time to recover. Not only your body, but also your mindset. So you do need to identify and change the things that caused the burnout in the first place. It might be that it's enough to go on sick leave, and you can kind of recover from that and come back to an employer or workspace where you enjoy working. It might be that you have to get a new role at your employer, or maybe you even need to start a new job if that burnout is very much tied to the company that you're working for. And none of these things are easy to do for anyone, which is why I'm trying so hard to stop all of you from hitting that wall and burning out and just dealing with the so-called fun stress part. So I see that we have a question in the Q&A pane. So let me just see what that is. So this is a comment where it says that the undervalued kind of burnout is also called bore out. Sorry, this is a comment, not a question, but it is a good comment on that. So yes, bore out is a very good way of saying it instead of calling it a burnout. So I'm just going to see if we have any more questions on this burnout topic. I don't think we have that right now. Let me just grab a sip of water before I continue. Right. So moving on from burnout into the not so fun topic of depression. This has, many similarities with burnout, but it's also completely different. And I want you to take just a couple of seconds and see if you can imagine a depressed person. If you think of someone who is depressed, what do you think of? Do you think that they are, always sad, always crying, always upset? Are they disconnected? What is their life situation? Are they, lonely? Are they struggling with something? Try to just kind of figure out what is going through your mind when you think of someone who is depressed. And I think for some of you who are watching this live right now, you may have been drawn to the session because you have experience with depression. You know someone who is depressed. You've experienced it yourself. For others, they might not realize what depression really is. So I have one example of a depressed person that really, really hit me hard when I saw this. So the person in the background, his name is Stephen Boss. His nickname was Twitch. You may have seen him on the Ellen Show as the DJ. You may know him from So You Think You Can Dance, the program. And this is a video that I took from his Instagram on December 8th, 2022. It's showing him getting ready for Christmas with his beautiful wife and their beautiful children. Everything looks amazing. It looks like a happy family, knowing that this person had success on, a major reality show. He was working on the Ellen Show, a wife and kids. Everything seemed perfect on the outside. 2 days later, on December 10th, he posted some pictures from his wedding 9 years earlier, where he said, "Happy anniversary, my love." And he shared a picture of him and his wife. It got, 400,000 likes. It was a beautiful moment. And again, on December 12th, he was a dancer. So he and his wife shared a lot of these dance videos. Looks like they are enjoying themselves in front of the Christmas tree, dancing, happy, enjoying life. And on December 13th, so that is one day after the final video, Twitch was found dead by suicide. And this is not what you would imagine a depressed person look like. And this hit me really hard because I was in the middle of my own major depressive episode at the time. And I could relate so much to, choosing to share the good sides with, on social media with the people that you talk to. Everything is fine. We're good. But struggling so much on your own. So this is a depressed person, severely depressed person, who chose to end his life despite everything seeming perfect in his life. And depression is an illness. Same thing as burnout. It's a pet peeve of mine when someone say that they feel a little depressed today, or I was depressed yesterday. Because real depression is not a feeling. Maybe you felt a little sad. Maybe you felt, a little heartache. Maybe you felt upset about something. But depression in itself is an illness, and it is not a choice that you have. Depression, it does not make you feel sad, really. It makes you believe that you are worthless. It tells you that there is no hope for the future. And you don't always think about like, I want to die in that way. You just know that I don't want to live like this anymore. And this is the illness that is, you can logically know that you have a fantastic life, like Twitch, or in my example, I'm extremely privileged. I have a good life. I had a safe and secure job. My finances were fine. Everything on the outside, objectively in my life, was completely fine. But my illness, my depression was telling me that I shouldn't live anymore. There's no point in me living anymore. I'm not worth anything. Why am I here? What's the point of this? And it's constantly telling you these lies. And it's telling you that, don't even bother. What's the point? You're a burden. Life, everyone around you would feel so much better if you just weren't there as a burden. And it is a horrible, horrible illness. The problem is that you just don't see it on the outside. And there are quite a few similarities between burnout and depression, but where burnout is usually a response to a situation, for example, something at work or something at home, where you do feel drained, you stop caring, and you have no motivation. Those feelings can also kind of show up in a depression. But a depression is different because it is tied to your internal beliefs. While burnout is very much a reaction to something that happens to you or something in your life, depression is from within your own brain. It is extremely intrusive, and it's making you believe, not just think, but believe deep down in your core that you should never have been born. Life is better if you're not here. Your family members will be so much happier if they don't have to deal with you. And you really do feel helpless. And the only way out that you can see at that point is that I don't want to live anymore. I can't deal with this anymore. Everything would be better, not just for me, but for everyone around me if I'm not here anymore. So there are some overlap in terms of, maybe you stop caring or you have no motivation. You're unable to do the things that you normally do. You can't enjoy life in that way. But it is very different whether it's external or internal. And there is a video that explains way better than I feel like I'm able to in this moment, that explains what depression feels like. And I am going to share this link later. It's from the World Health Organization. They have created a video called "I Had a Black Dog and His Name Was Depression." And it explains depression in a way where there is this black dog following a man around, causing all sorts of problems for him. And that black dog is basically having depression in your head. If you know someone, or you think that someone might be struggling with depression, I urge you to go and look at that video to get a better understanding of how it feels to live with depression. We don't have time. I think it's 6, 7, 8 minutes. So we don't have time to look at it in the session, but go and look at it after. So in terms of treating depression, there aren't that many options. There are mostly 3 things. One is time. You will get through your depression. In the middle of it, you won't believe it, but you will. So sometimes it can be enough to let it pass and work through it. It can be very helpful to seek professional help, go to therapy and talk to someone about all the issues that you are struggling with. Or you could try medication and go to your doctor and find the right prescription for antidepressants. And this is, again, I don't want to overshare. You're not my therapist, but my depressive episode started early last spring. That's when I started noticing that, something is a little bit off. I'm not really feeling like myself, but I had gone through this before. So I have had multiple depressive episodes. I've learned how to handle them. I've learned all the tools on how to deal with it on an ongoing basis. I have seen multiple therapists and talked through things. And I really did feel that, I knew how to handle this. So I could feel that my depression was kind of incoming, but I also, in hindsight, kind of fooled myself. And I said that, you know what, I'm not really feeling like myself. I am going to take the summer off and just do the things that I enjoy, something that makes me happy. And I ended up spending most of the summer just playing video games because, it did make me happy. It was fun. I learned something new. In hindsight, that was a poor coping mechanism. That was basically me escaping from reality and finding a distraction rather than something that helped me. And when we got to October, things got so bad that I was sitting on the couch and I could barely do anything. In Norway as well, it's very dark, it's very cold, and I was completely out of it. And my mom called me and she said that, do you want me to come and help you with something? And I said, no, I think I'm just tired. I just need to rest a little bit. I'm not feeling well. I just need a little bit of rest. And she said, do you want me to come and help you? And I completely I broke down in tears and a little bit back and forth. And I finally said, yes, Mom, I think I need some help. And she said that she's just going to pack up her stuff. They live a couple of hours away. And she drove down and she brought my dad. And they said that you're going to pack your stuff and you're going to come home with us because we are scared for you right now. And that was kind of the wake up call that I needed, that, yeah, I was in the middle of a very depressive episode, but I didn't really realize it myself until I saw how scared my parents were. Long story short, I ended up trying antidepressants for the first time. I tried one medication for 4 weeks, no effect whatsoever. I tried doubling that dose for another 4 weeks, no effect whatsoever. And that is 2 months of, being at the lowest point of my life and nothing is working. I tried a second medication, which had severe side effects, causing me to attempt suicide and harm myself, and call my doctor and said that I don't think these are working because I just tried ending my own life, until I found a medication that actually worked for me. And I've been on that for a few months now, and I am finally starting to get to a point where I can feel emotions again. I can enjoy the sunshine. I can hear music in my head. I have dreams again, which I had never even realized were gone during my depression. So depression is, it's not really related to stress in that way, but I do want you to be aware of how your body feels. And if something changes, make sure that you actually handle that and manage that. So I am just going to see, I know we're running short on time now, so let me just see if we have any more questions. Okay, so we have one comment here. One of the weirdest or worst parts of major depression for me was knowing how privileged and lucky I am and feeling like I had no right to feel the way I did because everything should have been fine. Once I just accepted that this is how I felt and stopped caring about whether I should be allowed to feel like that, I was better able to work through it. And that is a perfect summary of what I tried to convey. And that actually brings me to one of my final slides here, that if you are dealing with any of these things, whether it's stress or burnout or depression, you're allowed to feel the way that you do, even if you have it better than someone else, or even if your challenges are not as difficult as someone else's. Another person's struggles does not invalidate your own. And this is super important, because depression is an illness. Burnout is severe. It's not a choice either. I hope that you never really get to it. But you are allowed to feel the way that you feel. And if you ever feel that way, that I've felt, that more of you have felt as well, where you feel like, I'm lazy, I feel lazy, I feel guilty, I feel ashamed of not being able to deal with this, not to be able to just snap out of it, not to just, think positively and smile and everything is fine. Just remember that whether it's you or someone going through this, you're not lazy, they are not lazy. You are surviving, and you are using every bit of energy that you have on just surviving from one day to the next. And in that moment, that is enough. And on that note, I could probably talk about this for hours. If there are any of you who want someone to talk to, again, I'm not a professional, but I am here. I would be happy to talk to you if that can help you at all. Please feel free to reach out to me or seek help from someone else. And just know that you are not alone in this. Try to stop at the stress point so it doesn't get any worse. But depression is not something that is just caused by things that you do. That is an actual illness. It's not a choice that you're making. And I do hope that if you are struggling with something, you are going to get through it, get the help that you need, and just know that you are not alone. And thank you so much for letting me talk about this today, and for attending this session, and to the organizers for inviting me to speak.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for sharing. That's very touching.
Thank you.
And I feel lucky enough to have been able to give you hugs in the last year.
Yes, I appreciate that. You've
Yes.
helped, as of the others on this call.
We all need hugs. And I see a lot of things that I've struggled with in my life that I don't feel alone now.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Right. I will stop sharing here. There we go. And I got through that without crying.
I know. I didn't. I cried. I had to go
Yeah.
for Kleenex a
I
couple of
did.
times. I
I
think I
did.
got another one right now.
I was bummed that Zoom wouldn't let the host post questions on the Q&A. I couldn't. I tried. I went on trying. But
That's funny.
but thank you. Yeah, that was so deeply personal and so honest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Especially knowing some of the other things that you struggled with that have made it, a little more public. Your whole bathroom drama. Oh my God, that in and of itself is enough to like really cause somebody a lot of additional stress, and just on top of the work stuff. Just I'm sure that just made it even worse in ways. Yeah. So.
And just to call out, I've seen the comments and in the Q&A pane. I recognized all the names. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing with me as well. I love you all.
We love you too.
Love you too.